Have you ever noticed something strange about your memory? You can walk into a room and instantly forget why you came there. You might struggle to remember where you left your phone just a few minutes ago, but somehow, your brain still remembers that octopuses have three hearts. Or that a group of crows is called a murder, or that Venus spins so slowly that one day there is longer than an entire year on the planet. And the weirdest part, nobody asked you to remember these things. They've never helped you pass a test. They've never helped you earn money. They've never helped you solve a serious problem. Yet somehow, they stay in your mind forever. Why? Why does the brain forget important information but protect random trivia like priceless treasure? To understand this, we first need to talk about something most people misunderstand completely. Memory. Most of us grow up believing memory works like a computer. Information goes in. It gets stored in a neat little folder, and when we need it later, we simply retrieve it. But the human brain doesn't work like a hard drive, not even close. Your brain doesn't store information based on usefulness. It doesn't care how important something is for school or work. Instead, it stores information based on how interesting it felt when you first discovered it. In other words, your brain is less like a filing cabinet and more like a spotlight. It shines brightly on anything that sparks curiosity, surprise, or emotion, and whatever falls under that spotlight has a much higher chance of staying in your memory. Think back to when you were a kid. Maybe you once learned that sharks existed before trees. Or that the Eiffel Tower can grow several inches taller during hot weather because metal expands in heat. Facts like these create a small moment of shock in your brain. Your expectations about the world suddenly shift. For a brief moment, your mind pauses and says, "Wait, that can't be right." That tiny moment of surprise is incredibly powerful because your brain evolved to pay attention to things that break patterns. Thousands of years ago, noticing something unusual could mean the difference between survival and danger. If something moved in the bushes unexpectedly, that mattered. If an animal behaved in a strange way, that mattered. So your brain developed a powerful system designed to detect anything that doesn't match its predictions. And when something unusual appears, your brain automatically says, "This might be important. Remember it." Today, most of those surprises aren't life or death situations anymore. They're just strange facts about animals, space, or history. But your brain reacts the same way it always has. It treats surprise as a signal that something deserves attention, and attention is the first step to memory. But surprise isn't the only reason random facts stick in our minds. There's another powerful force involved: curiosity. Curiosity might seem like a simple feeling, but in the brain, it behaves almost like a superpower. Scientists studying learning discovered something fascinating. When people feel genuine curiosity, their brains become significantly more active in regions responsible for memory and reward. But the most interesting part of the research was this: when someone is curious about something, they don't just remember the answer to their question better, they remember everything around that moment better. In one study, participants were shown trivia questions that made them curious. While they waited for the answers, they were shown pictures of random strangers. Later, when researchers tested their memory, something surprising happened. Participants didn't just remember the answers to the trivia questions, they also remembered the faces of the strangers they had seen in between, even though those faces had absolutely nothing to do with the questions. Why? Because curiosity had put the brain into a special learning mode. Think of curiosity like opening a wide window in your mind. Once that window opens, information flows in much more easily. Details, images, ideas, they all have a better chance of sticking. This might explain why some people seem to collect random knowledge everywhere they go. They're not necessarily trying to memorize things. Their brains are simply constantly asking questions. A strange headline catches their attention. A weird statistic appears in a video. Someone mentions an unusual fact in conversation. And suddenly their mind says, "Wait, how does that work?" That single question starts a chain reaction. They search for the answer leads to another question, and before they realize it, they've fallen into a spiral of curiosity. Hours later they emerge knowing things like bananas are technically berries. Honey never spoils, or that there are more possible ways to shuffle a deck of cards than there are atoms on Earth. To someone else, these facts might look random. But to the curious mind, they are souvenirs from moments of discovery. Each one represents a moment when reality became a little bigger than it was before. And if you look closely at the random facts you personally remember, you might notice something interesting there. Not completely random. Most of them connect to moments when you felt something. Maybe surprise. Maybe wonder. Maybe a strange sense that the world is more complex than it first appears. For example, many people are amazed to learn that Cleopatra lived closer in time to the moon landing than to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. That fact instantly changes your mental picture of history. Suddenly ancient Egypt feels less distant and mysterious. Moments like this create small cracks in the way we imagine the world. And through those cracks, curiosity grows. But there's also a deeper reason why collecting strange facts feels satisfying. It changes the way we experience reality. When you learn unusual things about the world, ordinary moments start to feel more interesting. A walk through the park becomes different when you know that trees communicate through underground fungal networks. Looking at the night sky feels different when you realize the light from distant stars traveled thousands of years to reach your eyes. Suddenly the world feels bigger, more mysterious, more alive. That sense of wonder is powerful, yet modern culture often treats curiosity as something unnecessary. We're constantly told to focus on productivity. To learn skills that help us work faster. To fill our minds only with useful information. But the human brain wasn't designed to operate like a machine. We are naturally curious creatures. Our ancestors explored unknown lands, asked endless questions, and experimented with new ideas. That curiosity is the reason humans built civilizations, invented technology, and explored space. Without curiosity, progress would stop completely. So those strange little facts you remember, they're not useless. They're evidence that your mind is still exploring, still noticing the strange, beautiful details hidden in everyday life. There's also a social side to this behavior. When people share random facts in conversation, they're rarely doing it just to show knowledge. Often, they're trying to share a moment of wonder. When someone says, "Did you know wombats have cube-shaped poop?" they're not just giving information. They're inviting you into the same moment of surprise they once experienced. And if you respond with curiosity or amazement, something interesting happens. For a brief moment, both people are sharing the same sense of discovery. That shared curiosity creates connection. Humans bond through stories, ideas, and surprising discoveries about the world, even tiny ones. So if you're the type of person who randomly remembers strange facts, if you sometimes interrupt conversations with things like, "Did you know dolphins have names for each other?" Or, "Did you know Saturn could float in water because it's mostly gas?" Don't worry, your brain isn't malfunctioning. You're not wasting mental space. You simply have a mind that responds strongly to curiosity, a mind that constantly asks questions about the world, even when no one asked it to. And honestly, there are far worse ways to move through life, because curiosity keeps the world interesting. It prevents reality from becoming dull and predictable. It reminds us that even the most ordinary day still contains countless mysteries waiting to be discovered. And maybe that's one of the most valuable things a mind can do. To keep asking the same simple question over and over again. What else is out there that I don't know yet?